everyone. So in this video, we're going to be making the bows that go on the boxes that I did a video on making the box, and also a video on putting the oh, that doesn't shine through well. Let me get a better one here. There we go. On putting the names. Got to get the light just right there. There we go. Again, putting the names on these little Christmas balls from the dollar store. I will link, I'll put a link at the end of the video for making the names or words that we did with the Joy. And I will also put a link at the end for making the box. So in case you missed those, and I'll put it in the description as well, either way. I just wanted to do the, got to put the ball back in. And I want you to see that the ball fits in nice and snug, even without the tissue. So if you don't have tissue, it's okay. Looks just as nice. And there's the before, and there's the after, so it does make it look even cuter. We set that aside. So we're going to be doing this on the Joy, but first we want to make sure we have a piece of paper, and I think this one will work as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah. And I have a piece left over that I did this one on, and I want to make sure I show you how to get the stripes going in the direction you want. So I want to make sure I leave that right nearby to remind me. And for the bow, because you need to have it curve around, you don't want anything too heavy. So the cardstock I used for the box is too heavy for the bow because it creases it like a fold rather than just curl. So I've got this, and this is probably about 80 GSM. It's a little heavier than photo, your copy paper. I'd say maybe twice as heavy, but not quite. So you want something that it really is a little bit on the flimsy side. So we're going to get our Joy out. Excuse me. I'm going to set that aside because I want to cut this about the size of my mat. So I'm going to go, I'm just going to go, let's see, 4.5 by 4.5 on that. And you'll be able to use scraps, so I can get a lot of bows out of this. So if I just cut this, let me just cut it 4.5 because I'll show you what I do before we get going. So if I just need to make sure it's inside of the grid, but if it's hanging off, see how that's hanging off the end? That's okay, it won't hurt anything. So sometimes I don't trim up smaller because I may be able to trim up closer after I've cut what I want out rather than guess and then have a little piece left over. So, I'm from New Hampshire, New England, so I'm a little skimpy with I'm a little frugal with my papers. But I think it just cuts down on having too many small pieces, and probably for me because I do sewing and quilting, and fabric is a little bit more expensive than a piece of paper. So for me, it just flows over. I do the same thing when I'm working with fabric that now I do it when I'm working with paper or cardstock. So I'm just going to leave that the size that it is. I'm going to set these aside just for a minute. Put our little bows back like that. And then we're going to go over to the Cricut design space. So I have my screen up. I'm in Cricut design space, and I will tell you that I have the premium subscription, I think it is. So this bow may be in that section that is a paid for one. I'm not sure. And to be honest with you, I joined it when you think about it for the year, it's not that much money, and there's just tons and tons and tons of things that are already there for you to do that you don't have to draw, you don't have to think about. So for me, every time I want something and I didn't have a subscription, it would be the stuff in the subscription. So I just did that. So just to let you know. So we're going to go up to the top right and do new project. Okay, so we have a nice clean screen. Then we're going to come over to images, not projects. I tend to make that mistake. I think everything is a project. We want an image, and even though it's a bow and it has pieces, we still want images. So if I put in the search, if I put in bow, there's 1,689 options. Here we go. So I just want to scroll through these for a minute to show you what I was looking for. I don't want something that I'm just cutting out a drawing like this. I want something that is 3D. So I had to keep going down through, and I won't make you dizzy going too far, to find one, and I did. So I found the number, and when you search, I finally figured this out. When you search, you have to put in the number sign. And then the number is M101, and I use caps just like it did, F4A2C. And I'll give you a minute to if you want to write that down. It's the number sign M101 F4A2C. Hopefully this will work. And I hit search. There we go. So you see, I knew this is what I wanted because it's in pieces. So if you're looking for different shapes to do the same thing, this is the type that you're looking for. And when you find one, you just hit the, I'm going to hit the save, so that it'll be in your, so when you're looking for it, you would come over to see this says saved. And if you click on that, take that number out and do saved, it'll give you everything that you saved. Except now mine's not there. So that's because I probably didn't hit the button on the right. So I'm going to put it in. This will give you a chance to double check your number. So number sign, capital M101 F4A2C. And now I've got to uncheck this saved. And there it is. So, excuse me. I'm going to come down to, I have to select it so that the green box is around it. Now, the green box in the bottom right, add to canvas, is there. And it's going to bring it in. And it's all grouped together, and that's okay for the moment. So, in order to make the bow fit the box, I needed to have it 4 inches across and 1.8 wide. And you can adjust yours how you want. So I'm going to come up to the size. I could do it here this way, but it's easier to come up to the top, and in the width, I'm going to put in 4. And I'm just going to hit the tab key because I want to come over to here. Now, because this is locked, it's changing. If I put a number in the width or the height, it changes. So if I put it in the width, it changes the height, so it stays proportionally the same. Well, I found that when I cut that out, it was a little skinny looking. So I really want to have the 4 inches on my width, but I want this to be wider. So I want to change this number, but not change this number. So I want to change this 1.5 and not the 4. So I either unlock it here, but it's much easier if you come up to the top where the size is and hit the little padlock and unlock it. Now I can come in, highlight that, and I can put 1.8. And then I'm going to hit enter. And you see now it didn't change my width. It just changed my height. So I'm going to go back up and I'm going to lock that again. So we're all ready to go. Said to make sure my Cricut was my Joy was plugged in. So I have my Joy selected here. I'm going to hit make it. And I'm going to do it on a mat because I'm putting my own cardstock down. And done. And you can see here I have 2 mats. So if you're not sure why that happened, let's go back. And I'm trying to do this as if like what happened to me. So do you notice this piece right here is a different color? So we have 2 options, and I'm going to do, to me, the quickest option first. So I'm going to go make it on my mat. And I'm going to come down to this mat number 2. I'm going to click on it so it comes up here. And I'm moving my cursor around, right in the top left corner of that shape, there's 3 little dots. There we go. See the 3 little dots? I'm going to click the 3 little dots and I'm going to select Move Object. And it's going to ask me where I want to move it to. Well, I want to go ahead and move it to the first mat. So it's got a check mark. I'm just going to confirm. And there it is. And of course, we're going to have to rearrange things. Let me just move them down. So two things that does. If in fact this third piece was a different color, it means that you could use one mat and move this to where you could put a second color of cardstock in this little area and move these up where the first color cardstock is, and that way you don't have to mat twice. So those are options. In this case, I want it all the same color. So I'm using that gold, so it doesn't really matter which way my pieces are. So I'm just going to put them up here so they take the least amount of room. Now, there's no sense in me moving this way over because I'm only going to save a square inch of paper. So give yourself a little bit of room. Don't make things too close to each other. And don't spend, a half hour trying to get this right. And then I'm going to come down to the bottom right, and I'm going to click Continue. So it's looking for my machine, my Joy. And I'm using a light cardstock. Trying to remember if I use, so let's go and browse. And I don't know if there is such a one as light cardstock, but we'll see. Light cardstock. Oh, probably help if I had my fingers on the right keys. Do they make cardstock? Okay, and I can select that. So they do have one. So I'm going to give that a try. 65 pounds. We'll see. Now, if this was something I was going to use again and again, over on the right, there's a little star. If I click that star, it will end up on the top, and I'll show you in a minute. But even if I do this star, I still have to come back and select it with the green check in order for this tab at the bottom right to come up. And I can click Done. Okay, I'm just going to go back for a minute and cancel. I'm going back one, yes. And when I go forward, my light cardstock is right here. So these are the things that I use the most often. So when you hit that little star, it'll populate what you want up here. If you decide you don't want it, you'd go back to it and select the star. But we're going to take the light cardstock, and right now it says light cardstock, 65 pounds. I'm going to guess that's right, but we'll see. I can experiment for you. And so we've done number 1 where we pick the material. So now number 2 is darkened, and we need to do that part. So let me switch back over to the camera. And let me move everything out of the way. Let's see if I can do this with the least amount of glare. Let's try that. Let me do this for a moment. I'm using the standard grip mat. I just ordered a light grip, so I don't know if that'll make a difference. I mean, if I can get away with a light grip. I'm just going to put that on, and I can use my little tool. And I'm not exactly perfectly straight. That's okay. And so my light, let's see, my light is blinking. So that means I have to do something, and which means I have to load this in or start to feed it in. But you see how the mat never goes all the way through. Okay? So if we go back to our screen, now the number 2 is light, and number 3, click go, is on. So let me get it back to the camera, and you see how the light is blinking right here. So that means, for me to do something. So I'm just going to hit that go. And it'll start cutting. And I can show you while it's cutting. Well, the screen, it's all done. So the screen was going around telling me how much was done. So it's all finished. And I'm just going to do unload. So I'm going to hold off clicking this for a moment. I'm going to go back to the camera. Because you don't want to, and I said this before, and I'm only saying this because if you're learning just like me, sometimes you don't know these things. Don't try to pull this out. This will probably pull the machine with it. So we want to make sure that unload button that I showed right here, this unload button, I'm going to click that, and that will unload the mat. And when it's done at this part, I can click finish. And it will take me back to this screen. So let's see how it did. And you see the light's not blinking now, so it's done its job. So I've learned that instead of peeling this off, you want to turn the mat up, because you're bending the mat, which will help keep the paper straight instead of bending the paper, and then your paper starts to curl. So there we go. It's all done. And I will just take and I always do this right away, so I'm just going to take this and just cut that off. And I can probably get, 1, 2. So on this 1 4-inch piece, I could get four bows. So let me get my little tool. And I think this one might be a bit thinner. When I did these bows, this came out of a cardstock pad from Crafter's Companion, so it is a little bit heavier. A little bit. This one's lighter, but... And you notice I run my spatula under. I don't try to yank it off because it's fairly thinner paper. And I'm just going to put that on, set it aside, and did I lose my... I lost my little glue paper. Well, we'll just have to take a chance, won't we? So this paper is only single-sided. This one is also single-sided, and you really don't, you really don't pay much attention. Can you see the, oh, I can just show you here. It's white here, which is going to be glued down, but the white inside, there we go. You really don't pay any attention to. So what I want to do is, there's a tab on each end. See the little tab on each end. That tab is gonna go to the middle. But when it goes to the middle, and if you're not quite sure where to put it, the curve of this back should match the curve of the front. So those little tabs go over each other a little bit. Can you see? Okay, so I got to put a little glue on there. So what did I do with my, I'll try it with this. So we got to first have a little piece that's gluing onto the back of the ribbon or the bow. So I match this curve up right here. Now I got to do this one. Hopefully I got some there. And I'm going to bring this one over. And before I press it down, I'm going to make sure that this curve is lined up top and bottom, and then press it down. And then if you want to, let's see, what can we use? Let me find my pencil. So if you want this to sit up a little more, you're going to take something that's round and bring it up. Now I'm going to show you the difference between these two sides. Let's see if you can see it. So let me see. This is, oh, there we go. Now let's see if I can zoom in this way. Oh, this side, see if you can see it from this. Okay, here we go. This side, I got glue out further. See that right there? Where this side, I only got the glue on that center. So be careful of that. I don't know if I can. So I don't know as you can tell from the top, but I certainly can tell from the side. So be careful, make sure you get your glue. I would normally use wet glue here. Just, you want the glue to be just in that little center. Can you see? See how it comes? See, this one has that much more room. See how that's flat there? It should look like this one. So just be aware of that. I hadn't done that before, so. Okay. Then we have this piece, which I think the bow sits that way. It's hard to see the, right here. There we go. Oh, look, I'll turn it over so you can see. So the bow sits, there we go, that way. And you can put your small piece over both. I don't see any need for that. So I'm going to put the small, let me come in again. That little small rectangle is the part like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it on there. I'm going to bend it to the back, so I know what I'm gluing. And let's see. Well, I'll use the tape again, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to tape the center of the bow, bring those back, and then I know I have extra tape sticky still sticking out, but it's going to stick to that. But I still want to put a piece across, and I'm not the best with the glue tape in small areas. I flatten my bow out. And then it just sticks on like that. And I've got to see, I flattened that poor guy right out. I hope that isn't glue all the way up there. Thank goodness it's just a piece of paper. There we go. Oh, where are we? There we are. Oh, there we go. And then the back looks just fine because I did the little center behind the bow before I put the, I'm going to call them the tail, put the bow on the tails. And then we're just going to glue it onto the box. And see, that side that I glued, every time I touch it, it flattens out, and this side doesn't. So you'll have to remember that. Don't get glue out in your bow. But there we are. So yours is going to look better than that one is. So we're going to do another one, and I'll do a better job. But from the top, it looks good. So it just adds a little more to the box than just a plain lid. And what did it take? 4 inches by 2 inches of paper. So now I'm going to do this. Let me back up. Oh, wrong way. There we go, sorry. Now I'm going to use the stripe so that I can show you how to figure out which way your stripes are going. And it's going to be up to you which way you want them to go. You might want the stripe of the bow one way and the stripe of the tail the other way. Let's see if we can do that. And again, we're going to be using the Cricut, but we have to go over to the software, to the Cricut Design Space. Okay, so we're at the, excuse me, we're back at the Cricut Design Space. And this time, I'm going to show you the other way of making sure everybody's on the same mat if you want them to be. So this is grouped together. So when I move it around, they stay together. So if I just right click, and I'm going to come up to the top right here where it says ungroup. Now when I touch one piece, it's separate from another. So if I want this to automatically be on one mat as one color, I'm just going to, first I'm going to highlight all 3, and I'm going to come up to the top left, and because I did all 3 and they're different colors, there's a question mark here instead of a color, and I'm just going to make them all red. Now when we go over to the mat and we hit make it, oh, before I forget, you want to come up to save and you want to save it, okay, and name it. So you're going to save it, and I made some collections, and that's just like think of it as a file folder. And I made one for names of ornaments. So if you don't have the name, you're going to come over here and click on New Collection, and then you're going to name it and save it, and then it'll come up and it'll be right here automatically. And then I'm going to call this, I can name it something different from the one that's already in there, Small Bow, and save. Okay, so what I want you to do is do that, because I want you to go ahead and click on New, and then come over to My Projects, And then there's the one I just did. And what I want you to see is, let me see, if I bring this in this far, just this far, I can go right ahead to make it and it's all set to go. But if I'm looking at this and I can't remember what bow I used and I'd like to go see it again for some reason, if I come right to this images and fonts used in this project and click on it, I don't have to click on it, it's already there. There it is, that's what the original looked like, and here's where I got that number. Okay, so whatever's in between the parentheses, because I left out, that shows you that number symbol, and I didn't put that in last time. So whatever's between the parentheses is what you need to have to search it. But also, if it turns green and the little hand comes up with the finger, if I click on that, it'll take me to that one. And there's the number of it right there. So if you've done something and for some reason you want to know what you used because you're letting your friend know or whatever the case may be, that's how you do that. So I'm going to go back to the canvas. Oh, I didn't pick, did I pick it? No, I didn't pick it. So I'm going to go my project, pick this. And now I don't have to customize it. It's already ready for me. I can just come down to this make it. And if you want to make more than one, so I'm going to use on my mat. And if you want to make more than one, here's the little place for that. So if we did 2, it'll, and apply. See, it'll put them in order so that it'll make the most out of your paper or your cardstock. So I'm going to go back to 1, but make sure you hit the apply. Okay, so I'm all on one mat. And now, let me see. See, I can't remember now. Continue. So I went one step further than I needed to because I want to turn this on my mat. So it says, are you sure you want to cancel the cut? I'm going to say yes. I will say, I believe, in working with a friend of mine, she was on an iPad, and when she said yes here, it took her all the way back to the workspace, which is fine, you just have to come forward. I'm on a computer, and it just takes me back one step. So what we want to do is we want to put these, either turn them or not, according to what paper we're using. So let's go back to the camera. So I have my mat. Let me get everything else out of the way here. I have my mat, and let's see. How do I want my pieces to be? Well, if I only had this piece, half, then I could only go one, in one direction because I got that one long piece that's 4. So we have the one long piece, so you can even save this. So if I leave it this way, which my paper's not long enough for, and I don't want to go that way, so I need another piece of. Here we go. My paper wasn't big enough for that. Can you see? I've got this piece of paper, and it is not quite 4. And remember, I used 4.5 before. So if I keep this little template, I can tell it's hanging off the sides. And if I turn it this way, it'll fit, but then my stripes are going horizontal, which you might like. All right, I could do this horizontal. Maybe I'll cut one horizontal. You can see how it is. How about if we do that? But I'm going to turn the tails I want the tails to go this way. So my bow is horizontal and my tails vertical. Now this little guy, he's got to kind of stay this way if you want the stripes, because if I turn it, well, I don't know where exactly it'll be on the when it cuts. So that's a little intricate, but we'll turn it anyways. So we're going to put this on the mat, put the paper on the mat, and I'm showing you with the little template from when we cut out before, okay? My bow itself has to go horizontal, and we're going to see if we can turn the other, but I have to remember, let me do it up this end. My paper is only 3 3/4 long. And I only turned it because the inches are here and the centimeters on this side. So I thought it'd be easier for you to see. So I'm not quite 4. So let's see if we can get it turning the tails in the opposite direction. Might fit. Let's try it out and see. Okay, so we're going to move the bow all the way up. I'm going to take the ribbon, and you can see on the right that there's a little arrow that kind of goes in a circle. Now remember, we've got, let's say 3.5 inches. So I'm good there, because remember my paper came down 3 3/4. But even if it was 3.5, I'm still okay. And I'm going to put this one. I'm going to turn this the same way as that bow and see what we get. Now, you could see that if you were doing more than one, you could put one bow here, the other bow here, and put those more of the tails in between, or however it works out best for the paper you have on. But if I'm working with a certain piece of paper, this grid and the numbers are exactly the same as my mat. So I'm going to go ahead and hit continue. And I'm going to pick that light. Oh no, this is a little heavier. So I'm going to pick, well, you know what? I'm going to try light again, see if that works. Just so you'll know. So I've picked my paper. Now I have to load the mat. So let me switch back over. So you remember that the bow's going across here, the tails are coming down, and they were about at 3.5, a little less than 3.5, and we're at almost 4, so we have plenty of room. Joy is blinking, so that means I have to do something. Okay? And I'm going to take you back to the screen again, just in case you're new like I am. So now that number 2 is not dark anymore, so now I have to just click go. So I'm just going to come over here and click go. And I'm going to leave it here for a second, because then you'll see the countdown of how long it takes to do it, which is fast. But I'm going to switch to the Joy. Okay, and now it on my screen comes up and says unload. So I'm going to click this in a second, but this time I'm going to put you back to the Joy, so you can see when I hit unload on my screen, see how it just pushed it out. So let's see if that was enough to cut that. Oh yeah, it was. Oh, now you see this is still blinking because I have to, let me bring you back over. I have to click on finish. And it brings me back to this same spot. And I could just cut that out and go to a new canvas and work on something else. Or I could load in another piece of fabric and do that same thing. So let's see. It looks like everything's cut. Yep. Now I have to say it does look funny. I'm looking at it thinking, is it skinnier than the last one? But no, it's the same size. It's just an illusion. So let me get these pieces, get the mat put out of the way. And this time I'm going to use, let me come in a little ways, as long as I remember to stay where I'm supposed to. I'm going to use the back of this. I'm going to use my wet glue this time, which you might have noticed I forgot to close, so it has a little film on it. So I'm just going to glue a little glue right in that little dip, in that little center. I'm trying to be sparing. So I'm going to bring this side over so that my curves line up. While I've got it pinched and I'm holding it, I can just kind of push that a little bit and see how I opened that up more. Oop. And then I'm just going to glue exactly where that tab is that I just glued down. I'm going to put a little bit more on there, maybe. Kind of do it sparingly. Make sure I don't have glue all over my fingers, which I do. I'm going to bring this other side over. And again, I'm lining up the curve. And see, I can, while I'm pinching this, I can kind of push this. I don't want to fold it. But see how now, see how everybody's the same this time. And probably for filming, I shouldn't have used wet glue, but let me get this part done at least. And when I cut this one, all right, give me a minute. There we go. It isn't exactly straight, but probably if I was making a bow, it wouldn't be straight either. So I'm going to put it on so I have equal parts to fold over. And this time I'll use my pen, my glue tape, and I'm just going to run it across the center. Little fiddly fella. And again, I ran it right across the whole center, but I know this is going to go onto the tail, so I'm okay. But I want to put more glue on, so I'm covering the two papers that folded over. And I'm just pushing that down in the center. Okay, so here's our two bows. So one with the horizontal lines, with vertical tails, one with vertical lines and the same vertical tails. This center, you can see, I did it so it had been horizontal, and this one was vertical, the little centers. All right, there we go. So there's our little bows. So let's put one on. Oh, let me back it up again. Let me get my ball back down inside. So I can give you view 1, view 2, or horizontal bow, vertical bow. Putting them together kind of makes my eyeballs go off. Okay, so vertical, horizontal. So they're both cute. And again, you can make this to any size you want, and when you have the Joy, it just has to be able to fit on your mat. So if you wanted the bow part bigger, then you would turn the bow going in this direction, because there's 6.5 inches, though I think they do make a longer one. So you could have it much bigger. We went 4, so you'd be 2 inches bigger, which would be like 1/2 inch, and once you do all the bending, I think. But I do think they make a longer mat. I'll have to double check. But I think they make a longer mat. So you can have your bow as big as whatever the length of the mat you have. And if you're working on the Maker or on the Explorer, I think it is, then you could be as cute. You could be as, that's a 12 by 12 or 12 by 24 mat. So there we go. There's our 2 bows. And now you have on your Joy, you can make the ornament name or word or whatever you want on that. Then the box was made with just a scoring board because it's too big for the Joy to cut. And then your bow on the Joy. So if you just have the Joy and a little scoring board, or a lot of the paper cutters come with the scoring right on them. I think like We Are Us or one of those has the scoring right on it. So now you're all set. You got your gifts and you're ready to go. So thanks for joining in, and I'll see you next time.